burnout and chronic stress would feel like you have constant exhaustion no matter how much you've slept. That's one. You are cynical about life and detached from it. And these thoughts come up that are not your normal thoughts. You also have, like I had mentioned, difficulty remembering things or focusing, which is detrimental to a creative because our brains are what produces our writing or, our art. We cannot let that stuff get broken down too far because we won't be able to produce. Welcome to the Creative Cynergy Show. I am your host, Coach Cyn, where we're talking mind-body wellness for writers and other creative professionals. And in today's episode, I wanted to talk to you about something that has been really affecting me lately. And I know it's probably been affecting some of you out there, especially my fellow creatives, but that is burnout. And we're all familiar with burnout. It's burning the candle at both ends, doing a little too much, feeling exhausted. But what I wanted to speak to you on today is chronic burnout. So chronic burnout is different than just your standard everyday, I'm exhausted type of a feeling. Chronic burnout is a culmination of stressors that pile on top of each other day in and day out with no sign of relief. And they start to affect your entire well-being. And that's mind, body, everything, emotions. So what happens with this type of burnout is when there's chronic stress involved. Like I said, the stressors are piling up on each other, and it keeps these alarm systems in your brain firing for too long. And it actually starts to break down those portions of the brain that regulate emotion, memory retainment, all the factors that keep you as a functioning human being. They start to break down because you're overloaded. And that's especially true of your brain. So we're going to get into that today about what is chronic stress and consistent burnout, how it affects you, and also the types of things that you can do to get yourself back on track and regulate this. Because if you don't, and you continue on down this path of most resistance, it's really going to start to culminate into bigger problems down the road. And we don't want that, especially as it relates to our creative mindset. So let's dive into it. So some of the ways that chronic stress and, extensive burnout start to affect the brain is, let's call this the manager of your mind. This is the prefrontal cortex, responsible for regulating mood. And when it's under chronic stress, the brain actually starts to shrink and there's weakened connections between your concentration and, like I said, emotions and so forth. So you start to notice what's called brain fog, but it's quite more than that, because what's happening is it's impacting your decision making, and you'll notice you'll start to fire off on people or situations that you would normally have in check, but because your brain is so fatigued, it can't regulate that response anymore. So these are snap judgments, snap decisions, snap answers, and you might be like firing off on somebody that you care about in a way that you wouldn't normally do, but because you're so much under duress and stress, you're literally not thinking straight because your brain is not functioning at optimal levels. Another part of your brain that gets really overtaxed when you are in chronic stress and burnout, that you might have heard of it, is called the amygdala. And now this is an alarm sensor response that's buried deep in your brain. It's basically the fight or flight that gets triggered. But when you are overstressed, it gets overactive. So now you're in a constant state of survival mode instead of being able to relax. And in fact, when you are having chronic stress and burnout, you are in this heightened sense of awareness even when you are resting. So that's why it feels like when you go to sleep, even if you get a full 8 hours or whatever, you get up and you feel exhausted because you have not been able to turn off that alarm sensor, the amygdala, even at rest. So your body might be resting, but your brain's still firing in that same way. So it produces, the result is like a continued exhaustion throughout the day. So another part of the brain that gets affected is the hippocampus, which is where the memory is stored. It's the stress hormones that are released, from from being under duress and chronic stress. And this can relate to trauma too. These experiences often crop up. But what happens is you're getting the neurons are being damaged within your mind, and which is why burnout leads to, again, brain fog and forgetfulness, because you're not retaining information within the moment. And I'm going to give you an example of that, which is what prompted this video, and actually which prompted me to go down this rabbit hole and to find out exactly, how stress impacts your brain. So I'm at dinner the other night with my friend, and nice dinner, whatever. And at some point I said, "Hey, so what did we decide on dessert?" Her and the waitress turned to me and said, "We just had dessert not 10 minutes ago." I wasn't drunk. I was burnt out. I literally forgot that we had just had dessert. And as soon as they said it, I remembered it. But in the moment, I did not retain that we had just eaten dessert. And that was pretty damn scary. To me, I was thinking to myself, is this what Alzheimer's feels like? And yeah, if you don't take care of your brain down the line, this stuff starts to build on itself. And more often than not, it does lead to significant mental problems. So this is why I started diving into this and trying to figure out how to fix my own burnout brain. And I thought it would be relatable to you because, like I said, as creatives, we're constantly on the go, especially when we're being pulled in a million different directions. And it seems like the weight of the world's on our shoulders. We need to take the time for ourselves to regulate this, because it's not helping matters to continue to burn the candle at both ends. And I know we feel like we're all powerful in that realm. I'll sleep when I'm dead kind of thing. That can no longer be the answer, especially as you get older, because doing this and taxing your brain in such a way, it eventually it won't recover. So you have to start now to start putting the pieces in place to get it back to regulation. The good news is that you can, but you have to be aware of what is going on before you can start implementing these steps. So another thing you will more than likely are feeling when you are dealing with chronic stress and burnout is a sense of joylessness or a disconnect from life. Even if things are going well, you're just blah, you're just flat. And that is when the neurotransmitters in your brain are not releasing dopamine or serotonin, which are the mood stability neurons. They dip, which is why a lot of the times everything just feels like you're trudging uphill and it doesn't matter anymore what you're doing. This is dangerous. Okay. When this starts to really fall over you like a heavy cloak, we know that can lead to stuff like self-harm. So it's very important to notice all of the things that I was just pointing out about lack of sleep and how it affects you, so that you can start to counteract them, because we don't want these types of problems to lead to a worst case scenario. So if that felt like it was a little too complicated and a little too sciencey, do a self-check. Burnout and chronic stress would feel like you have constant exhaustion no matter how much you've slept. That's one. You are cynical about life and detached from it. Your work, your life, everything. You're just detached. It doesn't mean anything, and anything, whatever you're doing, doesn't matter. The other thing is this a reduced sense of accomplishment. Like I said, nothing I do ever works out. It doesn't matter if I'm here or not. Stuff like that. Your mind starts to break in on itself, and these thoughts come up that are not your normal thoughts. You also have, like I had mentioned, difficulty remembering things or focusing, which is detrimental to a creative, because our brains are what produces our writing or, our art. We cannot let that stuff get broken down too far, because we won't be able to produce. So if any of these symptoms are, seem familiar to you, it means you're caught in survival mode. And that could honestly stem back from, like I said, something traumatic in your past, or you're living through something traumatic right now. I myself, I'm really burning the candle at all ends. The candle's broken in half, and I'm burning it on four ends, not just two. But I've recognized that now that this has come up, and I'm figuring out the ways in which I can start to regulate that. Because another thing that I've noticed that I didn't bring up, I can't see. I can see, but I'm so tired, my vision's blurred. And that's also the result of staring at too many screens, which we've touched on before. But It's really starting to affect me. The schedule that I'm working, I can no longer do it. So things have to change. And it's important that you recognize that in your own life too. So what I want to do now is talk about the ways that you can restore your brain, uncook it, if you will. So the number one thing that you can start doing, and we've talked about this a lot on the Creative Synergy show, is to move. Get exercise. Even 20 minutes of aerobic exercise will boost the growth factor in the neurons in your brain that will repair the damage that's been done from the chronic stress and burnout. And it will also flood your system with the endorphins, which are, will boost the serotonin, etc., which are the mood stabilizers. So it is a win-win to get into the gym. The other thing you can do is get outside, especially if you're staring at screens a lot like I am. Go and look at something in nature, because it reduces the hyperactivity in your brain. Remember the alarm sensors, the amygdala. Being in nature is relaxing. So it will bring those levels down to where they're supposed to be instead of being heightened at all times. And now let's get into sleep, because this is what's failing me. I'm not getting enough sleep. I recognize that. Even if I, take a nap during the day or whatever, I'm not sleeping well. And that is because I sleep with the TV on. That is so bad. I know now that I need to break that habit. If you do the same thing, or you're staring at your phone before bed, something like that, we need a new routine. So you want to set up a ritual before sleep where you get a little bit of movement, a little bit of meditation, maybe journal, read a book, but turn off the screens. Get that blue light out of there, because what I've started to notice is even though I fall asleep to the TV, if it turns off by itself, it wakes me up. And I'm almost certain I'm being woken up throughout the night. I just don't realize it yet. So it's almost a similar situation. So turn off the TV, turn off your screens, black out the curtains, get yourself an eye mask. Maybe get some soothing sounds in the background if that's what I'm going to do, because I can't turn my brain off to get a deep enough rest. So I need like that outside resource to calm my mind down so I can get that full rest. And then I've talked about this before, but to take micro breaks during your work, because a lot of the times we feel like we're up against the gun. Maybe you have a deadline, stuff like that. You have a small window of when you can work or get your best work done. So you try to cram it all in there. But, that is really impactful of burning out, because you're doing too much and it's overloading your brain and your entire system. So take your breaks. It's fine. And when you take your breaks, get out into nature. See how that works? It's a twofer. And when you're out in nature, you're moving around. So all of these steps can be culminated into one thing that you just try to remember to do on a daily basis. And you'll start to see the long-term effects of doing it and how you can feel refreshed. The last tip I'm going to give you is to have real life social connection. I am not talking about going on the gram or whatever or texting. Get human face-to-face contact. And not only that, hug your friends. My mom always used to say hugs are nice, but there's a reason for it, because the oxytocin from socialization will actually calm your stress circuits. It's proven scientifically. I'm not going to get into the nuts and bolts of it, but that type of connection, it's just a nice experience. It lets you guys know that you care about each other, and it also will calm you down. So meet up with your friends, your family, and hug it out. So this is a short, down and dirty episode, but I thought it was important for me to relate this information to you, because it ain't no joke. And I've realized that lately. We all think we're immortal and we can do it all, but when you start to break down at these kinds of levels, and it gets a little bit scary. And I've talked about the breaking down of the physical body from sitting too long and so forth, but the mental aspect of it is just as important. And we're all dealing with a lot of stress these days. So it's important not to let it overload you to a point where you can't come back from it, and you maybe get into deeper problems. So take care of your mind. Your mind will take care of your body, and vice versa. Do the things that I mentioned in this video, and drop me a comment and let me know which one worked best for you. And if you have any other questions about it as well, I would love to hear what types of videos that you guys want to see on this show. And we'll see you back here next time for more mind body wellness tips. But for now, show's over, Cynergy.